A warm welcome to iMelt. Thank you very much for coming. It's a very exciting occasion to bring people from so many places around the world and around Australasia here together. So we're going to be discussing all with a shared conversation around models of engaged learning and teaching, but seeing all the amazing creativity and integrity and intellect that people have brought into that whole process. So it's a very exciting conference. And what I'd like to begin with is an acknowledgement of country. So we do acknowledge that this land we meet on today is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Adelaide region, and that their culture and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. An Indigenous colleague from University of South Australia, Trevor Taripta-Yerichi, has said, thinking about the people of this region, the Kaurna people, he said, they are educators, holders of knowledge. So this was our source of trade, said Trevor. We would meet up with other groups and trade in education. We have fished for hundreds of thousands of years. To know this fish, to catch this fish, we have to understand the fish. Our understanding of this fish is completely sacred to us. So to develop that knowledge, we had to research. So research in this country has existed in various forms for hundreds of thousands of years. So when you do research in this country, you are continuing to do this, continuing to practice a research tradition across thousands of years. And you can feel maybe the presence of thousands of years of history, of people surviving in the land, working out how to stay alive. And what Trevor said here is graphically illustrated by a story that is famous in Australia but won't be famous elsewhere. It's a story where some European explorers made their way into the interior of the continent, and they took vast amounts of materials. They had oxen and camel and wagon trains full of materials. And they're famous because the lying down figure is a man called Burke, and he and his co-leader Wills both ended up dying. And so they're famous because they explored the interior, and they died in a region that's about 1,500 kilometres from here. But what's not so well known is that there was a third member of the party called King, and he actually lived. He actually, his diary survived, and eventually he got back to Melbourne. But the reason he lived was because the Kaurna people had lived in that, what was to the Europeans a very harsh and inhospitable environment, but they'd made it a place where they could live, they could thrive, and they used their understanding developed through their processes, you could call them research processes, problem-solving processes, critical thinking processes, evidence-based decision-making, because if the evidence is that's going to make you sick, you're going to let down your tribe, or you know how to capture that fish. And actually, Burke and Wills died because they ate the same plants that the people of the region ate, but they didn't know how to treat it. It was poisonous. It was called the nardoo plant. And if you just treated nardoo and cooked it up, you could live off it, but it would slowly poison you to death. But through research processes, through evidence-based decision-making, the people of the region had worked out how to treat the nardoo to remove the toxicity. And it may have taken a lot of time, but it was that critical thinking process that they applied that was one of the many types of knowledges they developed that Trevor was talking about. They shared their nadu cake with the Europeans at first. They shared their fish. But then when those offers were eventually rejected, they found the last surviving member, King, weak and helpless. So they actually nursed him for months before he was rescued by a rescue party from Melbourne. And it just shows you that they were actually able to live on the land and support someone almost in a hospice environment, someone who was weak and on the point of death as his colleagues had died. So they could bring him back to life and healthy enough so he could make an arduous journey back to Melbourne. So this is the sort of research skills, understanding and care they brought to their process. And so Trevor's point is, these things we're talking about here in this conference, these have been going on in this place and other places for many thousands of years. You could say this is what people do. This is what humans do. This is part of what makes us human, the way we approach our lives and living on the land. So I suppose in our modern age, things have shifted in our reliance and our understanding. But really, if you look at 2017, we need for ourselves and our students the same raft of thinking skills as applied by the people who looked after King to survive in this complexity of age. So this is a place special to the Kaurna people, and I hope during this conference it's a place that is very special for you as you intersect, interact, and really make it a conference to confer with each other. During the breaks, there's plenty of breaks. We're only having 1.5 hour sessions, so make the most of the breaks to confer, to network, of course. And also during the sessions, there'll be plenty of times to interact with the speakers and to throw out questions to the whole group. So definitely make it a conference.